It's Friday, April 20th. Tonight, a conversation with one of the candidates running for governor. Next on North Carolina Now.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mitchell Lewis. Thanks for joining us. Tonight on North Carolina Now, we'll see how our state is playing a role in the growing hip-hop industry. But we continue our series of conversations with the candidates running for governor of North Carolina. Attorney Paul Wright of Dudley is seeking the Republican gubernatorial nomination.
Paul Wright is a former Superior Court judge in eastern North Carolina. He's running to be the next Republican governor in North Carolina. Thank you, sir, for being on the show.
Thank you, Kelly.
Mr. Wright, I see your campaign slogan is empower the middle class. Pretty broad statement there. How do you do it?
Well, generally, you look to the federal government dealing with those kind of issues, but I believe that Congress and the federal government, we can not look to them as we have, and I'm looking for the state and local level to empower the middle class. Can I go on? Such as empower them socially, empower them constitutionally, but perhaps today we'll talk about empowering them economically. I believe they've been impoverished in those areas, socially, politically, economically, but economically in particular. If you go out today and go on the highways of North Carolina, you'll see a 10-year-old vehicle, whereas before you would have seen a 5-year-old vehicle in the 1970s. If you look at the wages coming into a family, and there's a lady, she actually is with the Obama administration, has written a book on this. She's running for Senate in Massachusetts, I believe. And they talk about how the standing of the middle class family since the 70s has declined precipitously, particularly during the last 3 years. So in those areas, I think we need to empower the middle class by looking at what we can do here in North Carolina. I think we have to quit looking to the federal government because as a conservative, I believe they failed us.
Let's start at the state government level, since you would be governor in theory. What can a governor do that empowers the middle class? What kind of policies do you have in mind for making life better?
I took a few notes here this morning as I was waiting, and first of all, the main concern of the tax-paying, burden-bearing middle class, as I see it, is Obamacare. And if I were governor, I would encourage our legislature and our people to do what Ohio has done last year. That is to pass a constitutional amendment allowing not only the middle class, but anyone to have a doctor of their choice and their own health care decisions. Ohio passed that by a 2/3 majority. But the way economically I would do it is that let everyone have their own home and area tax-free. This is something that we've never done in North Carolina. That is, abolish the income tax, not the income tax, excuse me, the real property tax on homes. There's actually a state that's about to possibly to do this in June. That's North Dakota. And they'll be voting whether or not to, and I'll be glad to elaborate on that some, they'll be voting whether or not to do away with the income the real property tax in North Dakota on homes, and I'd like to see North Carolina follow that way.
You have a couple of issues you've listed on your website, and you can Google the website. Now, up top was the Affordable Care Act, or as you call it, Obamacare, resisting that's influence throughout North Carolina. Is that the top issue for you, or are the issues equal in terms of eliminating the property tax in favor of a different funding mechanism at the county?
I would say they're pretty well equal. I just don't think that North Carolina's resisted Obamacare enough. Our state has not joined in with the others in the suit in the federal court in Atlanta, and nor has it done these constitutional amendments like Missouri and Ohio. But I would say that allowing each county the choice, the option of having either continuation with real property tax on their homes or go to a sales or income tax in that particular county would be one of the star points of my program.
Let's dial into the property tax issue. What is wrong with property taxes? They've been around a long time.
Well, yes, they're easy to collect because there is your home You know, there's the 80-year-old lady's home, and she has to pay it, or they will eventually, the sheriff will come and foreclose her. So from a tax collection point of view, it's the ideal tax. And of course, you would have to have a period of time to adjust, and the legislature would have to tweak all these issues. I realize that. But I believe that that's one of the ways that this state could go forward in helping in this economic downturn that's so difficult for our middle class.
So the state wouldn't abolish property tax at local level. You would let each individual county make the determination if the property tax was right for its people.
Do you remember when we had the liquor by the drink referendums, and we go town by town all through North Carolina, and they would vote whether they wanted alcoholic beverages at the restaurants? Well, it'd be something similar to that. It would be an option, county by county, like you said, in which each county, the voters of that county, would have the right to continue with the property tax or replace it with a sales tax or some other combination.
A direct vote of the people, not of the county commissioners or any other political
I'm going
body.
to defer to our legislature to tweak all the issues, but I would prefer a direct vote of the people in that county.
If a county under your plan, say you get it through the legislature, gets that power, do you give them the option in the policy to eliminate the property tax with no other offsetting revenue?
In North Dakota, the group pushing it there had a Boston Think group, a think tank, who says that each family will get nearly $3,000 by elimination of the property tax. And they believe it's going to lift the boats and that they will not have to raise sales or income tax. I'm more cautious. I would allow, as you said, each county to replace it with a sales tax or an income tax to some degree based on our current income tax, or a combination thereof. And that's probably where the county commissioners would come in.
Well, it doesn't take a genius to think if you cut property taxes, you put more cash into families' pockets. But you got public schools out there and some things the counties take care of historically that people expect to look good and have grass mowed on the high school football field and that sort of thing. What is the consideration given on a policy like this towards taking care of the schools? I don't know of any conservatives or liberals out there who are against the school system or teachers or students.
Right. Certainly bonds, payment of bonds, all the schools, you will have to have a replacement tax, and that's where there may be 99 counties that don't desire this. There might be one county, New Hanover or Wake, who does desire that. If they do, then they would have to have a replacement tax at that particular county option, either by vote of the people or by the county commission, as to whether it's sales, income, or some combination.
Just looking at what you know about politics, you might be dealing with a Republican House and a Republican Senate based on redistricting. How much would you think they would listen to you on fundamental tax reform like this?
Well, since Governor Hunt and our state getting the veto power in 8-year terms, I think they're very attentive to agendas of governors 1, 2, 3. You know, at some level they're not going to be attentive, but I think they would concerning these middle class issues.
When you look at direct democracy, which is an interesting approach, how much is okay for the state and is healthy to let people decide directly on policies as opposed to electing a representative to go to Raleigh or electing a governor to enact policies on their behalf?
Well, the western states have initiative and referendum, if that's what you're referring to. Our eastern, more colonial, older tradition is to allow the representatives to, what we might say, call all the shots. But I think that at this point, whether we go to initiative or referendum, which is not one of my campaign issues, or whether the representatives, which I defer to them to do it, we need tax relief, which one other thing before we leave, Kelly, is I would like for us to look at what Governor Jindal has done in the state of Louisiana, which he signed last year, a bill giving tax relief to all families with children with educational expenses in public, private, or home schools up to $5,000. That is working well in the state of Louisiana, and I think that's another way we can empower the middle class.
That was my next question. You're calling for a $5,000 tax deduction, and you cite the Louisiana model for that. I got a question. Why do you think $5,000 is the right amount, and how do you define a school-aged child?
Well, first question is the $5,000. Louisiana didn't start out with $5,000. It started out with a much lower figure, and I would be very well pleased if we had a much lower figure if North Carolina would pass that. As to a school-age child, that's already by statute, I'm pretty sure.
Well, you're the governor. You could define it any way you want. There are people with kids in college? That's school age, or is it 18? Or
Oh, no, I meant secondary school such as.
so in K through 12, you would help families pay for their school expense, their qualifying school expense.
Right. So let's say a lady just barely making ends meet and her child needs a computer. It's going to cost $1,000. She will get a tax deduction.
The 10th Amendment, states' rights, is very important to you. What kinds of activities solely belong under state authority, and in this case, North Carolina's authority?
Well, the clearest is Obamacare. George Washington and those gentlemen did not require someone to purchase from a government-approved insurance carrier insurance. And that's the issue with the major issue in America is Obamacare.
What is it about the 10th Amendment that doesn't make it as sexy or as fun to talk about as you hear about the second, the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment?
Well, to use legalities, under the Due Process Clause, the federal courts in the last 30, 40 years have incorporated the Bill of Rights under the incorporation doctrine. I don't want to bore your listeners with that. What I'm saying, the 10th Amendment says that all powers not specifically given to the federal government is retained by the people or the states thereof. So it's the repository of rights in which we can guarantee that we will not have totalitarian government, whether fascist or communist or socialist.
You've weighed in also on forced annexations throughout North Carolina, an issue I've covered for several years at the legislature. The big argument with that one is the people say you're coming in and encroaching and I don't want you there. The cities will say, well, you come and you move in right outside our city limits and you enjoy our parks and our city streets and you don't pay for them. What's the balance on that?
I think that there should be a minimal vote, at least 50% plus one, before a county resident who may have lived there 50 years is required to pay the city taxes. So I am against annexation. I know the League of Municipalities and others are the opposite, but I feel that we should not have forced annexation.
You also know that there is strife between the different regions of North Carolina over issues. I want to ask you about that. Where is the strife going on and what are they arguing about?
It depends on the governor, it depends on the region, it depends on the time. Sometimes it's these beautiful bridges, I suppose, going to the different islands. Others, it could be a city in the Piedmont. What I would like to do, should the people honor me with being governor, is to decrease regional competition by saying that the farmer in the mountains that pays taxes, his area gets as much as possible the same benefits as any other person in the state.
So you would set aside population density and other issues and look at more of an equitable situation?
Well, certainly population density would have to be in there because the more people, the more right they have to the public till, yes.
You know, there was a bill that was filed in the legislature last session, I believe. It would have required drug testing for people on, they call it welfare recipients. There's a lot of different state entitlements and benefits enjoyed by people that may or may not be called welfare to them. Which benefits would trigger a mandatory drug test under your proposal as you call for, which would not?
Well, that is a program instituted in Florida, but it is now, the ACLU has sued and it is stopped, and so we really don't know if the federal courts, it's got to wind its way up. So it's really, I think we have to look to other states as a laboratory before we jump in, and I agree with you. It should be very carefully screened so that people continue to have their dignity. In other words, it shouldn't be done too frequently.
Why do you think it is off limits and legally questionable? You are a judge that the state require a drug test before they hand a benefit to someone who says they need it.
I think that we should be very careful before we drug test people with high frequency. I think that, say, once a year, to make sure that people are not violating our drug laws is fine.
We could see a big debate coming up on voter ID, photo ID before you vote, and you're clear on it. You like strict, quote strict, photo ID. Now, conservatives, I've heard across the board, generally like voter ID, but the other side will say, you know, it does create an obstacle there possibly. Is there a balance there, or do you discount the idea that a photo ID could ever cause problems for somebody who might legally want to vote?
Well, I think you have to make accessibility to these photo IDs. Again, when you begin to work out the details, even if you're preparing a meal at home, you have to realize there'll be adjustments to be made, particularly to maintain the dignity of the people you're dealing with.
Now, are social issues big in campaign 2012? We're starting to dive into those. Well, you've written about them and you got a position on them. Or should we look solely at the money right now?
Kelly, last night I was at the Wake County Republican Convention, and they went with Santorum just a little bit more than Romney. And these men have been portrayed as social conservative and then as economic conservative. I think that we have to have both, and as I was going over with you, I want to empower the middle class economically. However, particularly a lot of the people, their religious beliefs, they're very concerned about the social issues.
So you think right now in the primary campaign, you better heed to social issues?
Yes, this marriage amendment I'm finding is pretty major out there.
Is North Carolina right now, is the economy in such a shape that the voters and the people want to hear a big social issues debate?
Well, like you say, I think there's going to be the social issue over the marriage amendment till May 8th, but then I think it'll shift to some degree back to the economic.
Now, as governor, you would say that you would be a supporter of a concept called the personhood amendment. It defines a human being as the time, I presume, the egg is fertilized.
Yes.
Would that outlaw abortion in North Carolina if you got a constitutional amendment in the state constitution?
Well, there's been no state passed this yet, but it's being, there's states looking at this, and of course this would deal with the whole issue of federalism. I'm just for the states doing what they can legally, constitutionally, as far as they can on issues like personhood.
If you recognize the person from the time of fertilization, and since you are willing to talk social issues, what does it do for birth control products?
Well, I'm just not prepared to go into that in the interview. I would have to think about that some.
Why do you think you would be a good governor? And after years of McCrory's campaigning to win the GOP nomination again in 2012, what makes you think you're a superior candidate to the guy who's focused on it all these years?
Well, I'm not running against any particular person. I'm focusing on my campaign, and what I want to say to the people is that I'm the only Republican who's held a constitutional statewide office, that of Superior Court judge. I've held court and worked in almost all the counties of the state. And secondly, I feel like I have electability and based on these issues of mine.
Well, Paul Wright is running in the GOP primary in 2012 for North Carolina governor. Mr. Wright, thank you so much for being on North Carolina Now.
Appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
As we approach North Carolina's primary election on May 8th, UNC-TV is once again partnering with the North Carolina Center for Voter Education to provide a comprehensive online voter guide, including information about one-stop early voting, which began yesterday and runs through Saturday, May 5th. The guide can be found at unctv.org/election. If you are not yet registered to vote, you can register and vote at the same time at any one-stop early voting location. Well, North Carolina is home to an influential and growing hip-hop community. From Grammy Award-winning producers to Grammy-nominated rappers, our state hosts a well-established and growing hip-hop community. David Huppert and Peter Bell introduce us to some of the artists who helped define the hip-hop scene in North Carolina.
This is my record room. Okay, this is where the magic happens.
Meet Patrick Dolphin, North Carolina native and hip-hop producer.
I wanted to make beats for a living. I ended up on a Jay-Z record. Who knew?
Knife wonder. Put that knife in you.
It's like you stand in the line and Jay-Z's like, you. And you're like, me? Yeah, you. Me?
Dolphin, or Ninth Wonder as he's known throughout the music industry, is a Grammy Award-winning producer, teacher at Duke University, and record label CEO.
Don't come in this game asking for everything because you'll get nothing. Come in this game asking for nothing and you'll get everything. Stuff will start coming all over the place.
Armed with a unique collection of vintage vinyl, Ninth Wonder helped put North Carolina music on the map, at least in terms of hip-hop.
The hip-hop scene in North Carolina started, from my knowledge, in the early 90s. That came all of these acts out of this collection called the Justice League, but that also birthed Little Brother, Fonte Pooh and I.
1, 2, 3,
let's go!
Little Brother released 2 critically acclaimed albums as Ninth Wonder continued to hone his skills as a producer.
If I'm gonna spend my time working and working and working hard, I wanna work for something that I really believe in, I got a passion for, you know?
Ninth and fellow Little Brother member Fonte stressed the importance of hard work, as well as using the internet to spread your message.
You don't need as much as you think you need, like the old paradigm of I need the label, I need this, I need that. All you need is great music. If you have great music, your audience will find you. It's bigger than me and Ninth or whatever. I think just that kind of creative spirit and just that entrepreneurial spirit of wanting to be your own person, I think that's really what NC hip hop is.
This is the life of kings.
In order for NC or an artist in NC to make their move, it relies on putting your best music on the internet as much as you possibly can, because you never know who's looking or listening to your music.
They made the business possible, you know, from being in such a small place where there's no, you know, Atlantic Records, there's no Def Jam Records. So I appreciate them very, very much for, you know, just paving the way.
Ninth's ability to make beats on his own terms has earned him the respect of musicians across the country.
Ninth Wonder is a genius, first and foremost.
For those that don't know, I go by the name of J. Cole.
One disciple who took those lessons to heart is Fayetteville native J. Cole.
And I come from a place not too far from here.
I first met J. Cole at the Local 506. A Local 506 is in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where local acts would come perform, and there'd be beat battles. But he would come to the truck like, man, let me hear some music, man. I know you got some beats, And I would just play beats for him.
I would drive up for the beat battle. Ninth Wonder would be DJing, Little Brother, first album had just dropped. You know, I'm coming from Fayetteville, like, seeing these guys that's in the magazines, like, whoa, such a big deal.
Since those days outside the 506, J. Cole has grown into one of the biggest hip-hop stars in the country.
Can you get me backstage?
Please welcome J. Cole.
Hey, we got a good thing. Don't know if I'ma see you again.
His first official album, released by Jay-Z's Rock Nation label, debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts.
I'm a product of North Carolina hip-hop. Anytime I get to perform back home is a great thing, so, you know, shows are packed, sold out, kids know every word to every song. I would like kids to tell me, like, man, you inspired me to chase my dream to be an astronaut or scientist. Like, that's what I want to see, but I understand that I motivate a lot of artists.
I graduated school, I was broke as I couldn't afford my rent, couldn't pay for my food. I never gave up by the grace.
J. Cole would be the actual template for what hip hop should be from here, you know, in the future. J. Cole is definitely a stamp in true music because his story's genuine. Everybody can relate to it. He's a North Carolina boy.
And I ain't too proud to tell you that I cry sometimes.
Just as Ninth Wonder hopes to inspire people to work hard and find their true passion, the Cole World message is all about following your dreams.
If you have a dream now, you didn't have a dream yesterday, that's dope. That's my goal. It's to, like, just inspire somebody that was complacent in life and maybe had a little dream but wasn't sure about it. You know, if they could be like, you know what, I'm gonna go for it, even if they own a bakery. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm all about that.
It goes beyond words what those dudes bring to North Carolina hip hop, for real. And I hate that there are people out there who still don't know who they are.
Raleigh DJ D. Cutta has been following the hip-hop scene in North Carolina for nearly 20 years.
I'm from North Carolina. That's all you do is play records.
You're gonna keep hearing me say that about cats like Cole, Ninth, Pooh, Fonte. Authentic. If you're not authentic, people can see that. They bring to the game that East Coast style with Southern guys who can actually rap, okay? Who are actually rapping about something, who are actually talking about everyday life.
D. Cutta remembers his college days, seeing Ninth Wonder walk around campus, constantly bobbing his head to the beat.
He was always listening to hip hop, and you always were like, what are you listening to? And then you would sit there and get the vibe with him. He always said that he wanted to keep it grassroots back then in those days, and he did.
Ninth star may have risen since his days as a student at NC State and NC Central, but he's never outgrown his love for the Triangle.
I refuse to leave North Carolina. I think I make the best music here. This is my environment. Every producer has their environment. My environment is North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. I live a comfortable life doing exactly what I want to do. I wake up every day knowing that I make beats for this. Who can say that, right? That's what it is.
Make some noise for Ninth Wonder, y'all.
For more information on the artists featured in tonight's story, visit our website at unctv.org/ncnow. Well, that's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.